The snow on Vera 7 was not white like Earth snow. It was blue and cold enough to freeze metal. Among the blue snow and broken machines, a creature lay dying. His name was Stryker, though names meant nothing to him. He was a war dog, built and trained to fight for the Krelth Empire. Stryker had 6 legs, each one as thick as a tree trunk. His body was covered in plates that looked like crystal but were harder than steel. These plates were supposed to protect him. Now 3 of them were cracked and broken. Purple blood leaked from the cracks, staining the blue snow beneath him. He had been lying there for 3 days. 3 long, cold days. The battle had been terrible. Stryker remembered the sounds of weapons firing, the screams of dying soldiers, the smell of burning metal. He had fought well, as he was trained to do. He had torn through enemy lines with his crystalline fangs. He had crushed armor with his powerful jaws. He had done everything his programming told him to do. But the Krelth were losing. Stryker could feel it through the control chips in his brain, the chips that always told him what to do, where to go, who to kill. The chips that caused pain when he hesitated or failed. Then the order came. Retreat. All Krelth forces were to leave Vera 7 immediately. Stryker tried to reach the transport ships. He dragged his broken body through the snow, leaving a trail of purple blood, but he was too slow, too injured. The ships began to leave. He barked through the communication channel the way war dogs were trained to do. A sound that was part howl, part electronic signal. It meant, unit requesting extraction. Unit still active, the response came cold and mechanical. Con unit damaged beyond field repair. Extraction cost exceeds unit value. Unit abandoned. New unit will be issued. Just like that, they left him. The creatures he had served for 8 cycles. The empire he had bled for. They looked at him, calculated his worth in credits and resources, and decided he was not worth saving. Stryker watched the last Krelth ship disappear into the purple sky of Vera 7. He tried to stand, but 2 of his legs were shattered. He could only lie there, breathing slowly, watching his own blood freeze in the alien snow. Other ships came after that. Relief vessels from different species coming to collect their own wounded and dead. Stryker watched them with his 6 eyes, 3 on each side of his wedge-shaped head. Perhaps one of them would help him. The first ship belonged to the Ventari, a race of tall, thin creatures with too many arms. Their medical team walked right past Stryker. One of them even looked at him. Their translator device spoke in a flat voice. Krelth War Dog. Military hardware. Not eligible for medical aid. Stryker tried to move toward them, but they stepped away quickly. To them, he was not a living thing. He was a weapon. Weapons did not need mercy. The second day brought Corlean scavengers. These were short, wide creatures who collected valuable materials from battlefields. They approached Stryker cautiously. One reached out to touch his crystalline armor plates. They were valuable, worth good money in the right markets, but Stryker was still alive. His eyes still glowed with warning light. His jaws could still crush bone. The scavengers talked among themselves in clicking sounds. Too dangerous, they decided. Not worth the risk. They left him there. More ships came and went. Medical teams, recovery crews, salvage operators, all of them saw Stryker. None of them stopped to help. To the Ventari, he was a weapon. To the Corleans, he was dangerous cargo. To others, he was simply the enemy's property, not their problem. Stryker felt the cold seeping deeper into his body. His 6-chambered heart beat slower. The control chips in his brain still buzzed with electricity, still caused small sparks of pain, but even that was fading. He wondered if this was how war dogs died, alone, forgotten, left in the snow like broken equipment. He thought about his life, though thinking was hard with the control chips. He had been grown in a laboratory designed for war. His earliest memory was pain from the chips teaching him to fight. His second memory was more pain teaching him to obey. Every moment of his 8 cycles had been training, fighting, bleeding, and pain. He had never known kindness. That word did not exist in his programming. He had never been touched gently, never heard a soft voice, never experienced anything except commands and combat and the constant electric pain that kept him obedient. The third day was the worst. Stryker's body was shutting down. He could no longer feel his back legs. His breathing came in short, shallow gasps. Ice crystals formed on his crystalline plates. He closed 4 of his 6 eyes, too tired to keep them open. This was the end. He understood that now. The Krelth had abandoned him. No one else would help him. He would die here alone in the blue snow, just another piece of wreckage on a battlefield. Then he heard something, a new ship approaching low over the frozen ground. Stryker opened two eyes to look. The ship was smaller than the others, marked with symbols he did not recognize. White and blue with strange writing on the side. The ship landed near him. Its engines were quieter than Krauth ships, humming instead of roaring. A door opened and warm air spilled out into the cold. 3 figures stepped out, walking carefully on the ice. They were strange creatures. They walked on only 2 legs, which seemed unstable. They were small, much smaller than Stryker. They wore thick clothing against the cold. Their faces were flat, with only 2 eyes, a small nose, and a mouth. No armor plates, no natural weapons. They looked fragile. Humans. Stryker's programming identified them slowly. The species that had recently joined the galactic community. The ones other species called soft, weak, too emotional. The humans approached cautiously. One carried medical equipment. Another operated a floating stretcher. The third kept one hand near a weapon but did not draw it. They stopped a few meters away, looking at Stryker. He looked back at them with his 3 open eyes. His programming told him these were potential enemies. But his programming also told him he was too weak to fight, too injured to be a threat. He could only lie there and wait to see what they would do. The human with the medical equipment stepped forward. It was a female, Stryker's sensors told him. She moved slowly, carefully, her hands visible. She spoke and her voice was strange. Soft. Gentle. Nothing like the harsh commands of the Krauth. Stryker did not understand the words. But something in that voice made him keep watching. Made him wait instead of trying to attack. The human female knelt down in the snow beside him, close enough to touch. She reached into a pack and pulled out something. Food. Stryker could smell it. His stomach ached with hunger. The human broke off a piece and held it out to him, still speaking in that soft voice. No one had ever offered Stryker food before. Food was delivered by machines, measured precisely for optimal performance. No one had ever knelt beside him. No one had ever spoken to him gently. He did not know what to think. Did not know what to feel. The control chips buzzed with confusion, unable to classify this situation. The humans were not attacking. They were not running away. They were staying, offering food, speaking softly. For the first time in his life, Stryker felt something other than pain and obedience. He did not have a word for it, but it made him hesitate. It made him keep his jaws closed instead of snapping. It made him watch these strange, fragile creatures with something close to curiosity. The female human stayed there beside him in the snow, patient and calm, holding out that piece of food. Behind her, the other 2 humans waited. Their ship hummed quietly. Warm air still flowed from its open door. And Stryker, the abandoned war dog, the forgotten weapon, the creature left to die alone, began to wonder if perhaps the universe held more than pain and combat and cold blue snow. Perhaps there were creatures in it who did things he had never experienced. Things his programming had no name for. Things like mercy. The human female continued to hold out the food. Stryker stared at it with his 3 open eyes. His stomach hurt from hunger, but his programming screamed warnings. Unknown substance. Potential threat. Do not consume. But the Krauth had abandoned him. Their programming had failed to save him. Maybe it was time to ignore it. Slowly, painfully, Stryker stretched his neck forward. His massive jaws opened slightly. The human did not flinch or pull away. She stayed perfectly still, letting him take the food at his own pace. His crystalline fangs could have taken her whole hand off. She must have known this. But she did not move. Stryker took the food gently, more gently than he had ever done anything in his life. It tasted strange, not like the nutrition paste the Krauth fed their war dogs. This had flavor, texture, it was good. The human smiled. Stryker did not understand the expression. His creators did not smile, but something about it made him feel less cold inside. Good boy, the human said softly. Again, Stryker did not understand the words. But the tone was kind, approving. It made the control chips in his brain buzz with confusion. Approval without pain. Gentleness without punishment. These things did not exist in his programming. Behind the female human, one of the others spoke. This one was male, taller, with a strong voice. Minji, be careful. That thing could kill you in 1 second. The female named Minji looked back at him. He won't. Look at his eyes, Daehyun. He's confused, not aggressive. The male human called Daehyun shook his head but did not argue further. He kept the floating stretcher ready, hovering just above the snow. The third human, also female, spoke next. Her hand still rested near her weapon. Our captain is watching this through the ship cameras. He says to take as much time as needed. Thank you, Yuna, Minji said. Then she turned back to Stryker. She reached out slowly with her hand. No weapon, no tool, just her bare hand covered in a thin glove. Stryker's warning systems activated. Unknown contact approaching. Potential threat, defend, attack. His muscles tensed. His jaws opened slightly, showing his crystalline fangs. A low growl rumbled from his chest. Minji stopped moving. She did not pull her hand back, but she did not move it forward either. She just kept it there halfway between them, and continued speaking in that soft voice. It's okay, she said. I know you're scared. I know you're hurt. I just want to help you. Scared. That word existed in Stryker's programming, but only as something to inflict on enemies. War dogs were not supposed to feel fear. Fear was weakness. But lying here in the snow, abandoned and dying, Stryker realized he was scared. Terrified of dying alone, of the pain, of the cold, and somehow this human knew it. Saw it, acknowledged it. Minutes passed. The wind blew blue snow across the battlefield. Minji's arm must have been getting tired, but she did not lower it. She just waited, patient and calm, giving Stryker time to decide. Finally, the growling stopped. Stryker's jaws closed. His 3 open eyes shifted from warning red to cautious amber. Slowly, carefully, Minji moved her hand forward the last few centimeters and touched his crystalline armor. Her hand was warm. Even through her glove, even through his armor, Stryker could feel the warmth. It was not the harsh heat of weapons fire or the burning pain of the control chips. It was gentle warmth. Life warmth. No one had ever touched him like this. The Krauth technicians who maintained him used tools and machines. The handlers who controlled him used pain signals through the chips. Physical touch was always rough, always functional, always cold. But this touch was different. Minji's hand rested on his armor plate, not examining it, not testing it, just touching, being present, acknowledging that he existed. You're hurt badly, Minji said, her hand moving slowly across his armor, checking his wounds. But we can help you. We have a ship. We have medical equipment. We can make the pain stop the pain. Those words cut through Stryker's confusion. The control chips had hurt him every day of his life. The battle injuries hurt him now. Everything hurt. Always. If these humans could stop the pain, Minji looked back at Daehyun. Bring the stretcher. We're taking him to the ship. Daehyun nodded and moved the floating stretcher closer. It was big enough to hold Stryker's massive form, but getting him onto it would be difficult. 2 of his legs were shattered. His body weight was immense. Moving him would cause terrible pain. Yuna approached from the other side, finally taking her hand away from her weapon. How do we do this without hurting him more? Carefully, Minji said. Very carefully. They worked together, these 3 small humans. They did not try to rush. They did not care that the cold was biting at them, that they had been on this frozen moon for almost an hour now. They only cared about moving Stryker without causing him more pain. Daehyun positioned the stretcher beside Stryker's body. Yuna helped support his broken legs. Minji stayed near his head, continuing to speak softly, her hand on his armor. Every time Stryker tensed or growled, they stopped and waited. It took almost 30 minutes to get him onto the stretcher. 30 minutes of slow, patient work. Other species would have used machines, cables, quick and efficient methods that did not care about pain. But the humans used their hands. They supported his weight. They moved when he was ready. When Stryker was finally on the stretcher, his pain had increased, but not as much as he expected. The humans had been careful, gentle. Strange words for a battlefield, but true ones. The stretcher began to move, floating smoothly toward the ship. Stryker watched the world pass by. The blue snow, the wreckage, the frozen bodies, a battlefield he thought he would die on, but he was not dead. He was moving. These humans were taking him somewhere. Taking him to help, they said. To stop the pain. His control chips buzzed with warnings. Unknown location. Potential captivity. Resist. Escape. But Stryker was too tired to resist. Too hurt to escape. And something else stopped him too. Something the chips had no program for. Trust. Small and fragile like the humans themselves, but real. These creatures could have left him. Like everyone else had, they could have walked past, decided he was not worth the effort. But they had stayed, had been patient, had touched him gently. Maybe they meant what they said. Maybe they really would help. The ship's interior was warm, so warm that Stryker's frozen armor began to crack and pop as ice melted from it. The bay was large, designed for cargo, but the humans had cleared space for him. Soft materials were laid down. Equipment hummed nearby. Daehyun secured the stretcher in place. Yuna went to speak with someone else, probably the captain who had been watching. Minji stayed beside Stryker, her hands still on his armor. "We're going to take you to the medical bay," she explained, even though Stryker could not understand her words. But her tone was clear, reassuring. "Our ship is called the Soul's Hope. I'm Minji. I'm a medic. I fix people who are hurt. Soul's Hope." A name that suggested optimism, very different from Krauth ships with names like Death's Blade or Bloodfang. Another human entered the bay. This one was older, with authority in his walk. He wore a captain's uniform. He approached Stryker carefully, studying him with intelligent eyes. "So this is our new passenger," the captain said. His voice was calm and measured. "I'm Captain Jiwoo. Welcome aboard." Stryker did not understand the words, but he understood command authority. This human was the leader, the one who had given permission to rescue him. The one who had said to take as much time as needed. Jiwoo turned to Minji. "What's his condition?" "Critical," Minji replied. "Multiple fractures, severe blood loss, possible internal damage. And I'm reading electronic implants throughout his nervous system. Control chips, I think." Jiwoo's face hardened. "The Krauth use pain compliance on their war dogs. I've read the reports. If the reports are accurate, he's been in constant pain for his entire life," Minji said quietly. The captain was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Do whatever it takes to save him. Cost is not a concern. This creature served in war just like our soldiers. He deserves the same care." Those words, even without understanding them, carried weight. Stryker could feel it. These humans were not just rescuing him out of convenience or profit. They were doing it because they believed it was right. The ship began to move, lifting off from Vera 7. Through a viewport, Stryker could see the battlefield getting smaller below. The place where he had been left to die. The place where his old life ended. Minji stayed beside him as the ship accelerated into space. Her hand remained on his armor, warm and steady. The other humans moved around, preparing the medical bay, checking equipment, making plans. For the first time in 3 days, Stryker felt something other than cold and pain and despair. He felt something he had no word for, no programming to explain. If he could have named it, he might have called it Hope, the Soul's Hope. Perhaps the ship's name was fitting after all. As the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, Stryker closed his remaining open eyes. The pain was still there. The control chip still buzzed in his brain. His body was still broken and bleeding, but he was not alone anymore. He was not abandoned. These strange, soft, weak humans had done what the mighty Krauth Empire would not do. They had saved him. And Stryker, who had only ever known war and pain and cold obedience, began his journey toward something entirely new. Something his programming had never prepared him for. He began his journey toward healing. The medical bay of the Soul's Hope was unlike anything Stryker had ever seen. White walls, clean surfaces, and equipment that hummed with quiet efficiency. The Krauth medical facilities were cold metal chambers where war dogs were repaired like broken machines. This place felt different, softer. There were even plants growing in containers near the windows. Minji had not left his side since they brought him aboard. She had stayed beside him during the entire journey to the medical bay, speaking softly, keeping her hand on his armor. Now she worked with another human, preparing for what she called surgery. The other human was male, younger than Captain Jiwoo but older than Daehyun. His name was Sunho, and he was what humans called a bioengineer. He studied living things and how to fix them. He looked at Stryker with curious, intelligent eyes. "I've never worked on a Krauth war dog before," Sunho said, examining the scans on his screen. "The anatomy is fascinating. 6-chambered heart, redundant organs, crystalline armor integrated with the skeletal structure." "Can you help him?" Minji asked. Sunho's expression became serious. "The physical injuries, yes. Broken bones, blood loss, tissue damage. Those I can fix. But these..." He pointed to the scan showing Stryker's nervous system. It was lit up with dozens of bright spots. These control chips are the real problem. Minji leaned closer to look. How many are there? 47, Sunho said quietly. Embedded throughout his entire nervous system. Brainstem, spinal cord, major nerve clusters. They're designed to deliver electric shocks when the war dog disobeys or fails. That's torture, Minji whispered. That's what the Krauth call training, Sunho replied, his voice hard with anger. These chips have been active for years. Constant low-level pain to keep him obedient. Higher levels when he needs punishment. Stryker listened to their voices, still not understanding the words but sensing their emotions. Anger, sadness, something that felt like caring. His control chips buzzed, confused by these reactions. Why would they care about his pain? Captain Jiwoo entered the medical bay. Behind him came Dae-hyun carrying more equipment. The captain looked at the scans, his face grim. Can the chips be removed? Jiwoo asked. Sunho hesitated. Technically, yes, but it's extremely dangerous. They're integrated with his nervous system. Removing them could cause massive trauma, paralysis, brain damage, death. And if we leave them? Jiwoo asked. He'll be in pain for the rest of his life, Sunho answered. Constant, unending pain, and the Krauth could potentially reactivate them remotely, send kill commands, turn him back into a weapon against his will. The room fell silent. Stryker watched the humans with his 6 eyes all open now. He could feel the weight of their decision. These strange creatures who had saved him now had to choose. Risk killing him to remove the chips or let him live in eternal pain. Minji spoke first. We should ask the crew. This affects everyone on the ship, Jiwoo nodded. Agreed. All hands meeting in 10 minutes. The humans left except for Minji and Dae-hyun. Dae-hyun checked Stryker's vital signs while Minji stayed close, her hand on his armor. Stryker could feel his heart's beating faster. Fear coursed through him. Not fear of death. He had accepted death on Varus 7. But fear of hope. Of believing these humans would help only to be abandoned again. 20 minutes later, Jiwoo returned. His face was calm, but his eyes were bright. The crew voted, he said. Unanimous. We removed the chips, Minji smiled. I knew they would. Yuna said something I want to share, Jiwoo continued. She said any being that fights in war deserves the chance to live without pain. She said that's what makes us human. Sunho pulled up the surgical plan on his screen. It'll take at least 16 hours. Maybe longer. The chips are in difficult locations. We'll need to work slowly and carefully. Then we work slowly and carefully, Jiwoo said firmly. Dae-hyun, you'll monitor his cardiac function. All 6 heart chambers need to stay stable. Minji, you're on neural activity and life support. Sunho and I will do the actual chip removal. They prepared everything with precise care. Equipment was checked and rechecked. Supplies were laid out in perfect order. Every human on the ship seemed to know their role. Before they began, Minji leaned close to Stryker. She looked into his eyes, 3 on each side, and spoke gently. We're going to help you now, she said. It's going to hurt at first, but then the pain will stop forever. No more chips. No more electric shocks. No more obedience through suffering. You're going to be free. Free. Stryker did not know that word, but something in Minji's voice made him understand. She was promising him something. Something good. The humans gave him medicine that made him sleepy. His 6 eyes began to close one by one. The last thing he saw was Minji's face, still close to his, still speaking softly. And then darkness took him. The surgery was even harder than Sunho had predicted. The control chips were not just embedded in Stryker's nervous system. They were fused with it, grown into the neural tissue over years of use. Removing them was like trying to separate threads from a woven cloth without destroying the fabric. Sunho worked with tools so small they had to use magnification to see what they were doing. Each chip had to be carefully isolated from the surrounding nerves, then extracted without causing damage. One wrong move could destroy vital neural pathways. 4 hours into the surgery, they hit the first major problem. A chip near Stryker's brainstem was wrapped around a critical nerve cluster. Removing it risked paralysis of his breathing. I can't get a clean extraction, Sunho said, his voice tense. If I pull it out, I might sever the nerves. Jiwoo studied the scans carefully. Can you disable it instead of removing it? Maybe, but it would still be there. Still foreign material in his body. Disabled is better than dead, Jiwoo said quietly. They spent 2 hours on that single chip, carefully severing its connections, neutralizing its circuits, leaving the physical hardware in place but making it completely inert. Finally, they moved on to the next one. 8 hours into the surgery, Daehyun called out a warning. Heart chamber 4 is showing stress. Blood pressure dropping. Minji immediately adjusted the life support systems. She monitored Stryker's brain activity, watching for any signs of trauma. The neural readings fluctuated wildly as chips were removed. Pain pathways disrupted and normal function tried to reassert itself. He's fighting, Minji said. Even unconscious, he's fighting to stay alive. He's a warrior, Jiwoo said, not looking up from his work. Warriors don't give up. 12 hours into the surgery, they had removed 30 chips and disabled 7 more. But fatigue was setting in. Human hands began to shake. Eyes burned from staring at magnified images for so long. Yuna brought them food and water. Other crew members rotated in to help where they could. The entire ship seemed to hold its breath, waiting, hoping. At the 14-hour mark, disaster struck. Removing a chip from Stryker's spinal cord caused a cascade failure. His neural activity spiked, then dropped dangerously low. 2 of his 6 heart chambers stopped beating. We're losing him, Daehyun shouted. Minji worked frantically at the life support controls. Sunho and Jiwoo tried to stabilize the damage they had caused. For 3 terrible minutes, it looked like Stryker would die on their operating table. Then Minji did something unexpected. She leaned close to Stryker's head, even though he was unconscious, even though he could not hear her. And she talked to him. Don't you give up, she said fiercely. Don't you dare give up. We didn't save you from that frozen moon just to lose you here. You're stronger than this. You're going to survive. You're going to live without pain. You're going to be free. She kept talking, kept encouraging even as her hands worked the medical equipment. And somehow, impossibly, Stryker's heart chambers restarted. His neural activity stabilized. Color returned to his crystalline armor. He's back, Daehyun said, his voice full of relief. All 6 chambers pumping. Neural activity normal. Sunho looked at Minji with amazement. What did you do? I reminded him why he's fighting, Minji said simply. They worked for 4 more hours, removing chips, disabling the ones they could not safely remove, repairing damaged nerves, healing what the Krauth had broken. Finally, as the 16th hour approached, Sunho extracted the last chip. That's it, he said, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. 39 removed, 8 disabled, all control systems neutralized. Jiwoo carefully closed the last surgical site. He's going to have scars, both physical and neural. Scars mean healing, Minji said. Scars mean survival. They cleaned up, checked everything twice, and finally stepped back. Stryker lay on the medical table, his massive form still and peaceful, free, for the first time in his life, from the constant pain of the control chips. Minji stayed in the medical bay even after the others left to rest. She pulled a chair close to Stryker's side and sat down. Her eyes were heavy with exhaustion, but she refused to leave. You made it, she told the sleeping war dog. You're free now. When you wake up, everything will be different. She talked to him about Earth, about the planet where humans came from. She told him about Earth's dogs, creatures bred for war who learned to live in peace, who learned to trust, to love, to play. You can learn those things too, she said softly. You're not just a weapon. You're not just a war dog. You're a living being, and you deserve everything that comes with that. Peace, happiness, choice. Her eyes finally closed, exhaustion taking over. She slumped in the chair beside Stryker's medical table. Recovery was slow, but it was happening. Each day, Stryker grew stronger. His broken legs healed. His wounds closed. His 6-chambered heart pumped steadily, all chambers working in perfect rhythm. But the greatest healing was happening in his mind. For the first time in his life, Stryker's thoughts were clear. No buzzing from control chips. No electric pain clouding his consciousness. No constant commands overriding his own will. His mind was his own, and it was vast and strange and wonderful. The humans treated him differently than any creature ever had. They did not see him as a weapon or a tool. They saw him as... Stryker struggled to understand what they saw. A person, perhaps. An individual. Something worthy of care and respect. Minji visited him every day in the medical bay. She brought him food, not nutrition paste from machines, but real food with flavors and textures. She talked to him constantly, even though he could not understand her words. Her voice had become familiar, comforting. When she entered the room, Stryker's eyes would shift from their neutral amber color to a warmer, brighter shade. You're learning, she would tell him with a smile. Every day you're learning that life can be good. Daehyun came too, usually carrying interesting objects. He would show them to Stryker. Let him examine them with his eyes and nose and careful touches of his massive paws. One day Daehyun brought a ball. It was simple, round, made of some soft, bouncy material. This is a toy, Daehyun explained, rolling it across the floor. Humans play with these. Our dogs on Earth love them. Play. Another word Stryker did not know. War dogs did not play. They trained. They fought. They obeyed. But play? Daehyun rolled the ball towards Stryker. It bumped gently against his paw. Stryker looked at it confused. What was the purpose of this object? It was not food. Not a tool. Not a weapon. What was he supposed to do with it? Go ahead, Daehyun encouraged. Push it, chase it. Have fun. Fun. Yet another unknown concept. Stryker tentatively touched the ball with his paw. It rolled away. He watched it roll, his 6 eyes tracking its movement. Something stirred in his chest. Curiosity, interest? He pushed it again, harder this time. The ball bounced off a wall and came back. Daehyun laughed, a sound of pure joy. That's it. You're playing. Stryker pushed the ball again. And again. Each time it moved, something inside him lightened. This action had no purpose, no tactical advantage, no training value. It was simply enjoyable. The ball moved, he chased it, and that made him feel something good. This was play. This was fun. And it was wonderful. From that day on, Daehyun brought new things for Stryker to explore. Puzzles that required problem-solving. Objects with different textures and sounds. Each one taught Stryker something about living instead of merely surviving. Yuna, the security officer, had a different approach. She treated Stryker with respect like a fellow soldier. She did not baby him or treat him as a pet. Instead, she invited him to join her exercise routines. You need to rebuild your strength, she told him, once he was cleared to leave the medical bay. Not for war. For health. For yourself. She showed him exercises that stretched his muscles, built his endurance, coordinated his 6 legs. But unlike Krauth training, which was brutal and pain-focused, Yuna's methods were measured and careful. She pushed him, but never passed his limits. She encouraged him, but never punished failure. Good, she would say when he completed a difficult movement. You're getting stronger. Not stronger for killing, stronger for living. Stryker began to understand the difference. Krauth training made him a better weapon. Yuna's training made him a better version of himself. The crew of the Soul's Hope accepted Stryker as one of their own. They made space for him in the common areas. They included him in mealtimes. They spoke to him, not because they expected him to understand, but because they wanted him to feel included. He learned their names and faces. He learned their scents and voices. He learned who liked to be greeted with enthusiasm and who preferred calm acknowledgement. He was learning to live among people, not as a tool, but as a member of their community. But it was Captain Jiwoo who truly understood what Stryker was experiencing. The captain often came to sit with Stryker in the observation deck, a room with huge windows showing the stars outside. They would sit together in comfortable silence watching the universe flow past. One evening, Jiwoo spoke quietly. I know what it's like to have your body controlled by others, to feel like you're not truly yourself. Stryker looked at him with his 6 eyes. The captain reached down and tapped his left leg. It made a metallic sound. I lost this leg in battle, Jiwoo explained. For a long time I felt broken, like a failed soldier, like I was worth less because I was incomplete. He paused, looking out at the stars. But I learned something important. We're not defined by what we lose. We're defined by what we do with what remains. Stryker could not understand all the words, but he understood the emotion. This human leader had suffered too, had been broken too, and had healed, just like Stryker was healing. Jiwoo looked at him directly. You're not a war dog anymore. That life is over. Now you get to decide what you become next. That's the gift of freedom, Stryker. Not that life becomes easy, but that it becomes yours. Those moments with Jiwoo became precious to Stryker. The captain never demanded anything from him, never expected him to be anything specific. He simply accepted Stryker as he was, while also believing in what he could become. Weeks passed. The Soul's Hope completed its mission and began the journey back to human space. During this time, Stryker learned more about his new life. He learned that meals were social times where humans gathered and shared not just food but stories and laughter. He learned that sleep could be peaceful, not just unconscious vulnerability. He learned that touch could be gentle, that voices could be kind, and that existence could be more than mere survival. But then the message came, a transmission from Galactic Council headquarters. Captain Jiwoo received it in his office, and afterward, he called a crew meeting. Stryker could feel the tension in the room when the crew gathered. The humans looked worried, upset. Jiwoo stood at the front, his face serious. The Galactic Council has learned about Stryker, he said. Several species have filed complaints. They say we're harboring Kralth military property. They're demanding we return him to the Kralth Empire or destroy him as dangerous contraband. The room erupted in angry voices. That's insane, Daehyun shouted. The Kralth abandoned him. He's not property. They say he's too dangerous for civilian life, Jiwoo continued, his voice heavy. A weapon that cannot be controlled. They want him destroyed. Minji stood up, her voice shaking with emotion. He's not a weapon. He's a person, a living being who deserves a life. I agree, Jiwoo said firmly, which is why I'm taking this to the Galactic Council directly. I'm going to argue for Stryker's asylum. He's a refugee fleeing abuse and torture. He deserves protection under galactic law. Yuna crossed her arms. And if the Council says no? Jiwoo's expression hardened. Then we refuse. The Soul's Hope has plenty of space in areas where the Council has no jurisdiction. Stryker stays with us no matter what. The crew erupted in agreement. Every single human in that room was willing to defy galactic law to protect him. Stryker watched them argue and plan and rally around him, and something profound happened inside him. These humans barely knew him. He could not even speak to them properly. He had been their enemy's weapon. And yet they were willing to risk everything for him, not because he was useful, not because he could do something for them, but simply because they believed it was right. This was what they called loyalty. Not the forced obedience of control chips, but chosen dedication. They chose to stand with him. And that choice meant everything. The Soul's Hope arrived at the Galactic Council station 3 days later. It was a massive structure, home to representatives from hundreds of species. Jiwoo prepared his case carefully, gathering evidence, building arguments, seeking support from human delegates. The council hearing was held in a great chamber. Representatives from dozens of species sat in tiered seats looking down at the central floor where Jiwoo stood. Stryker was brought in, carefully restrained, though the restraints were more for show than necessity. He had no desire to harm anyone. The Ventari representative spoke first. This creature is military hardware belonging to the Kralth Empire. It should be returned to its rightful owners or destroyed as contraband. The Kralth abandoned him, Jiwoo countered. They left him to die on a battlefield. They forfeited any claim of ownership. The Corlean representative spoke next. Even so, Kralth war dogs are programmed killers. Too dangerous for civilian populations. The prudent action is termination. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Stryker could feel the weight of judgment pressing down. These beings saw only what he had been, not what he could become. Then Jiwoo did something unexpected. He played a recording. Audio only, but clear and unmistakable. It was Stryker's voice making a sound Stryker had not even realized he had made. A bark of joy, high and pure, from the day he had played with the ball for the first time. The sound filled the chamber. Not a weapon's growl, not a programmed response, but genuine happiness, spontaneous delight, the sound of a living being experiencing joy. That sound, Jiwoo said into the silence that fell. Earth was blue. From space, Stryker could see oceans and clouds and land masses in shades of green and brown. It looked nothing like Varus 7 with its blue snow and purple sky. It looked warm, alive, welcoming. The Soul's Hope descended through the atmosphere, and Stryker pressed against the viewport with 4 of his 6 eyes, watching everything. Cities sprawled across the landscape, forest-covered hills. Rivers snaked through valleys. This was the human homeworld, the place where they had come from. The place that had shaped them into the creatures they were. Beautiful, isn't it? Minji said, standing beside him. That's home. Home. Stryker had never had a home. He had lived in military facilities, transport ships, and battlefields. But never a home. Perhaps now he would learn what that word truly meant. They landed at a facility near a coastal city called Busan. The air that rushed in when the ship's doors opened was salty and warm and completely different. from any air Stryker had breathed before. It smelled of ocean and life and things growing. A delegation waited for them on the landing pad. More humans, including military officials and medical personnel. They looked at Stryker with curiosity and caution, but not with fear or hatred. They had heard his story. They knew what he had endured. One official stepped forward, an older woman with kind eyes and gray hair. "Welcome to Earth, Stryker. I'm Dr. Kim. I run the Veterans Recovery Center here in Busan. We've prepared a place for you, Boo." Veterans Recovery Center was a sprawling facility designed to help soldiers transition from war to peace. It had medical wings, therapy areas, living quarters, and open spaces for recreation and healing. Many of the humans here had fought in battles. Many carried physical or mental wounds. They understood what it meant to survive war and struggle with what came after. Dr. Kim showed Stryker around personally, with Minji walking beside him. The facility had been modified to accommodate his size. Doors had been widened. Rooms had been reinforced. There was even a special area outside where he could run and exercise. "We help veterans find purpose after combat," Dr. Kim explained. "Some go back to civilian work. Some teach. Some help other veterans. Everyone finds their own path." "What will Stryker do?" Minji asked. Dr. Kim smiled. "He'll tell us in his own way, when he's ready." The first few weeks on Earth were overwhelming. Everything was new. The gravity felt slightly different than the ship Stryker had lived on. The sounds were strange, birds singing, wind through trees, waves against shores. The smells were countless and complex, but the humans at the center were patient. They let Stryker explore at his own pace. They introduced him to Earth animals, the dogs that Minji had told him about. These creatures were much smaller than Stryker, with 4 legs instead of 6, but they shared something fundamental. They had been bred for war just like him, and they had found peace. The dogs were not afraid of Stryker. They approached him with tails wagging, curious and friendly. One small dog, a golden-colored creature named Buddy, seemed particularly interested in Stryker. He barked and jumped, inviting play. Stryker, remembering what Daehyun had taught him about playing, lowered himself down carefully. He pushed a ball toward Buddy with his massive paw. The small dog chased it enthusiastically, brought it back, and dropped it at Stryker's feet. They played like this for an hour, the massive alien war dog and the small Earth dog, finding common ground in simple joy, watching from a distance. Dr. Kim said to Minji, "I think he's going to be just fine." As months passed, Stryker became a fixture at the recovery center. He attended therapy sessions with veterans, sitting quietly while they talked about their experiences. His presence was comforting somehow. He could not speak, but he understood. He had been there. He had survived. And now he was healing. Children visited the center sometimes, kids who had lost parents in the war. They were scared and sad and angry, but when they met Stryker, something changed. This massive alien creature with 6 legs and crystalline armor should have been frightening. Instead, he was gentle. A young girl named Hana had lost her father in battle. She refused to speak, locked in her grief. But when she saw Stryker, something in her recognized something in him. 2 beings who had survived what they should not have survived. Hana approached Stryker slowly. He lowered his massive head down to her level, making himself less intimidating. She reached out a small hand and touched his crystalline armor. It was warm, heated by his internal temperature. "You're like a big weird dog," she said quietly. Her first words in weeks. Stryker made a soft sound, not quite a bark, not quite a rumble. A sound of acknowledgement, understanding. Hana pressed her face against his armor and cried, releasing grief she had been holding inside. Stryker stayed perfectly still, letting her lean on him, providing the solid, warm presence she needed. From that day on, Hana visited Stryker regularly. She would tell him about her father, about her sadness, about her fears. Stryker would listen, his 6 eyes focused on her, giving her his complete attention. Sometimes she would bring books and read to him. Sometimes she would just sit beside him in comfortable silence. Other children came too. Kids who had been through trauma, who had lost people they loved, who struggled with fear and pain. Stryker became their guardian, their protector, their friend. He could not speak to them, but he did not need to. His presence said everything that mattered. "You are not alone. I understand. You will survive this." The center's staff noticed something remarkable. Children who interacted with Stryker healed faster. They opened up more. They found it easier to trust. There was something about this alien war dog, this creature who had every reason to be violent and broken, choosing instead to be gentle and protective. Dr. Kim formally proposed a new role for Stryker Therapy Companion. He would work with veterans and children who were struggling with trauma. His job would be simple: be present, be patient, be caring. He would do what the humans had done for him, helping others heal from their wounds. Stryker accepted this purpose gladly. It was so different from his old life. Instead of causing harm, he helped healing. Instead of inspiring fear, he brought comfort. Instead of being a weapon, he became a guardian. One day, Captain Jiwoo visited the center. He had been promoted to admiral after the successful mission to save Stryker. He walked through the facility with Dr. Kim, observing the work being done. They found Stryker in the garden area, surrounded by a group of veterans. Some were in wheelchairs, some carried visible scars. All of them carried invisible wounds. They sat in a circle with Stryker at the center, each person taking turns speaking about their experiences. When one veteran spoke about feeling like a failed soldier because of his injuries, Stryker moved closer to him. The veteran reached out and touched Stryker's armor, feeling the scars from old battles, the cracks that had healed but never fully disappeared. "You were broken too," the veteran said quietly, "but you're still here, still strong." Stryker made that soft rumbling sound that had become his way of expressing understanding and encouragement. The veteran smiled, the first genuine smile he had shown in months. Jiwoo watched this with tears in his eyes. "Look at him," he said to Dr. Kim. "We saved one life on Varus 7, but through that one life so many others are being saved too." "He's remarkable," Dr. Kim agreed. "I've worked with therapy animals for 20 years. I've never seen anything like this." News of Stryker spread beyond the recovery center. Media outlets wanted to interview him, though interviewing a creature who could not speak proved challenging. Instead, they filmed him working with veterans and children. They documented his story, from abandoned war dog to compassionate guardian. The story resonated across human space. Here was proof that anyone could change, that purpose could be found after war, that even the most broken beings could heal and help others heal. Other species began to pay attention too. The Ventari, who had walked past Stryker on Varus 7, sent a delegation to observe him. They watched him work with traumatized children, saw the gentleness in every movement, witnessed the healing he facilitated. The Ventari ambassador approached Dr. Kim afterward. "We were wrong," she said simply. "We saw a weapon. You saw a person. We will remember this lesson." But the greatest change came from an unexpected source. After several years of Stryker's work on Earth, a message arrived from the remains of the Kralth Empire. The Empire had fallen, torn apart by internal conflicts and rebellions. The war dogs, thousands of them, were being decommissioned, executed, destroyed like obsolete equipment. A few Kralth, those who had opposed the old regime, sent a desperate plea to Earth. "You saved one of our war dogs. Can you save more? They deserve what he found. They deserve a chance." Admiral Daehyun, now commanding the Soul's Hope, brought the message to the Galactic Council. He stood in the same chamber where Stryker's fate had been decided years before. "We have a choice," Daehyun said to the assembled representatives. "We can let these creatures die because of what they were made to be, or we can give them the chance to choose what they become. Stryker has shown us what's possible. Let's not waste that lesson." The vote was not close this time. Species after species voted to support a rescue mission. They had seen what Stryker accomplished. They had learned from his story. Even the Ventari voted yes, the mission was massive,